Thank you to everybody to attending to this webinar about the testing continuum. It's a very short session, only half hour. We are two speakers, me and also Alexander Berler. I present myself. My name is Claudio Saccavini. I am the IHE Catalyst Managing Director. And in the previous session, we have described what is IHE Catalyst. And in this session, we describe what is the idea of the testing continuum inside IHE. So, starting from this slide that is very useful to understand what is the how complex is the IHE ecosystem and the interoperability ecosystem. And so in our approach in IHE, we're starting from the functional requirement. Normally these functional requirements are provided by users or by vendor, but normally are provided by vendor that find that there is a problem. From this problem, normally IHE starting to define the use case, choosing the best standard to solve the use case, and this task are performed by normally the domain committee, because IHE is divided in two parts. One part is the domain committee that are in charge to write the specs, the profiles, the technical frameworks. The domain committees are, for example, radiology committee, infrastructure committee, ITI, tech quality, public health and research, CURF, or for example, PALM domain that is in charge to the lab and anatomy pathology part. When you have developed the technical specification, these technical specs are very useful because the vendor implemented it. And so you can use these specs in procurement and implementation world. To do this is better that we starting to use the testing plan. And so the tailored plan are used normally in Connectathons. Then I go in deeper about this part, the relationship between Connectathons, Projectathon, and so on. But with the test plan, you have a very powerful tool that is the join between interoperability specification and the test plan. So you can provide, for example, Connectathons like this week, or you can provide in-house testing. There are a lot of vendors that are customer of IHE-Services and now IHE Catalyst that uses Gazelle to support in-house testing during the development of their products. Or pre-production testing. Pre-production testing are very useful, in particular in hospital or regional level, to test the solution before to put the solution in production. In my previous experience in Consortium Arsenal in Veneto region, we use a lot of this phase. Before, for example, release new functionalities of IHE system, we provide in the pre-production testing in order to avoid to have some errors or mistakes during the deployment. This is the complex ecosystem of interoperability in which you see that the specs are only a part of the game, not the only part of the game. So to perform this, to support this complex ecosystem, IHE provide a very powerful platform, a very powerful tool. The name is IHE Gazelle Test Platform. IHE Gazelle Test Platform is a suite of tools. There are a part of the tool that is devoted to the testing management, like, for example, during the Connectathon. There are other parts of the tool that are supporting the simulators, validators, and so on. So it's not only a single software, but it's a very test-bed solution. It's a platform. With this Gazelle, you can test the profiles using the test plans, and support all the activities to the vendor sides and to e-health project. This is important because in this way you can support the quality of the interoperability, of course. Yes, this is a very nice picture to describe the testing continuums. You can see in this picture the vendor roles that are on the upper part and the user side that are in the lower part. You can see that there are some testing sections that are very familiar for you. For example, Connectathon, for example, Projectathon. We're talking a lot in a previous session with the Projectathon, and the new one that is called Share Zone. That is a new type of testing about the content of documents, and in particular in this phase for images. And of course, also the IHE conformity assessment. This test produces a quality control testing artifacts. We have the Connectathon result, for example. We have the project labeling coming from Projectathon, and we have the product labeling that are coming from IHE conformity assessment. It's very important not to be confused about other types of testing sessions. For example, there are HL7 Fire Connectathon, or we use, not in this Connectathon, but in the previous Connectathon, we started using the IHE Plagathon. That is a testing session, very informal, that is profile stage in which we use this testing like more a hackathon than a Connectathon. We call this type of testing enablers because this is event that enable interoperability with providing an effective first step leading or more rigorous testing process. These events are very useful for supporting the production of profiles and, of course, the test plan that we use in Connectathon. This is a very interesting map, and you can see in the purple line how is useful this testing phase for the procurement and the deployments. There are a lot of white papers and user handbook of IHE to support the procurement phase and support procurement phase also using the test results. This is another interesting table in which we compare, for example, the IHE Connectathon with the IHE conformity assessment. And you see in the difference between these two types of testing events are the increase of the prerequisite from Connectathon to the conformity assessment and decrease the level of rigor, because with the conformity assessment, we want to have a label, a certification of the particular product, not only a pre-product that normally are testing during the Connectathon. So the Connectathon test the organizational level, but the IHE conformity assessment tests the product level. So, for example, it's very useful in a procurement stage in a hospital to have an IHE conformity assessment of some products in the procurement phase to avoid to retest this product for the pre-production test. Now we have to say that the IHE conformity assessment are in a startup phase, not cover everything, but we are planning to work in the next years, in particular with the support of IHE Catalyst, to have a very good startup of this IHE conformity assessment. So this is the scenario in which we are put IHE Catalyst, that is an enable, that is a catalyst between IHE USA and IHE-Europe, that are the deployment committees, and IHE International. It starts, of course, from a spin-off of the IHE-Services, because about 10 years ago, at IHE International, there was a decision to start in a pilot phase inside IHE-Europe, creating a business unit called IHE-Services to testing how is important to support this testing continuum. IHE Catalyst is the answer from IHE International to support the test continuum. So this is the principle that we have just shown in the last session before this. I asking to Alexander to move to your presentation, and we have all the question we put at the end of your presentation. Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah, so if you can.
I have to leave probably.
Yes.
Share. Yeah.
So let me share my screen. I think this is the one. And let's, not from this part, but from here. Okay. So let me try to get some more details on what Claudio describes in a nutshell. So that's a very famous slide that we're using the last 4 or 5 years, trying to envision a little bit ourselves within IHE-Services now Catalyst, how we should try to target the different participants. So, and this is a way of separating the users from the vendors, at least conceptually, and try to enable testing for both the communities. So one part is directed towards the products, meaning conformity assessment and the Connectathons that was mentioned already, but also to internal vendors, to the internal labs of the vendors in some cases. They already have Gazelle tools and they're using it internally in some cases. And again, moving towards projects and any type of size from cross-country or national or regional to be able to support the implementation of intervallic specification into projects. So yeah, just a slight remembering about the Connectathon. So this is the root of how things started for us, and we moved towards making more testing. And as said, we have already quite a lot of experience into doing Projectathons, since we have done in the last 10 years of about more than 40 of those, from very small to quite large Projectathons. The Projectathon is like the Connectathon. It's a peer-to-peer testing event, but it has several differences. The first one is that we're using localized specifications for the projects. Sometimes you add up additional profiles or specifications that are not related to IHE profiles, so that's still possible. And the second thing is that we also do group testing. So we can aggregate users and actors and transactions into a sequence diagram and test that end to end. So yeah, some basic differences about who owns the governance, who manages the test plans. Again, in one case, it's the IHE organization part. On the other, it's the owner of the Projectathon. And we saw in the last years that the terms of Projectathons are also powerful, sometimes even more powerful than the Connectathon itself, because it brings the IHE profiles closer to reality. And we have done such type of exercises in many countries, and we're still continuing doing those in the upcoming years. The other thing is that we can combine specification with testing in a continuous loop, which means that testing is become better as the specification are becoming better as well, which at some point of time we can start moving from the idea from simple testing towards certification. When we feel that the specification have reached a limit of completeness and maturity, then they can be proposed in a more thorough level based on ISO standards for certification. And all this obviously creates and maintains also the human part of all this, which is the digital ecosystem. That's another view of what Claudio mentioned. Now, some more details about Gazelle. As Claudio mentioned, the Gazelle is an ecosystem of tools, which means that we are using this as well as a way of bringing the vendor and user community together to exchange. So through IHE, we don't only bring those two communities together to create the specification, but also to create and participate in the testing events. Gazelle is an ongoing and moving ecosystem of tools. It's not a stable one. It's increasing in size and in quality, and also following the technological advancements of the underneath tools that we are using, like JBoss or other, all in the open source domain. And we are trying to reuse as much as possible existing tools and expanding this type of collaborations with other entities that are creating tools like CCT, NIST, or MITRE in the US for the ONC core. This has resulted into many installations of Gazelle, meaning that we can view Gazelle as a stable product with the support of IHE-Services and IHE Catalyst. And we hope to be able to expand even more this ecosystem of users that are using Gazelle for their own purposes. Now, I'd like to walk us through to the bigger pictures a little bit, because for my view, we have done quite a lot of things, but I think we are probably just starting. And I would like to shift a little bit the discussion, because we have been focusing on the processes within the healthcare system. But if you see a little bit how things are moving at the global scale, you will see that healthcare is somehow influenced by many other things, and interoperability, I guess, is a key item in this. And the new term that is widely used, and I know that ONC is having a conference tomorrow about that, about the social determinant of health. And I think this is something that we need to follow up and see how we can expand the use cases, the interoperability, integration profiles, and our support to be able to cover more of that social determinants of health. Trying also to be able to provide more testing in also at the geographical scale, moving not only from the more advanced countries, but also to the in the concept of the global good. So to my understanding, we are just starting the digital transformation of healthcare. So as you know, healthcare is a little bit lagging the other domains of the business industry. And on one hand, you see, I think we are going to move in a way where everything is going to be connected. Partially, we have already started this, but maybe not in a fully interoperable way. So there's a lot of food for thought and work for us to do there. And I just put some logos that I think we will see quite a lot in the upcoming years, that we need to see a bit the expansion or where we need to go as a matter of standards, medical devices, regulations, going global through WHO, and the structuring of data. There's one trend in the US, which is obvious, and there's a similar trend in the European Union. Now, some cases where this testing continuum can be used. On one hand, it can be used into new use cases, like the one that we're discussing about what has WHO renamed into digital documentation of COVID certificates. So the smart vaccination now became the DDCC, if you will see it as a new acronym. And there are a lot of things that IHE can do, and in testing, on one hand, the fire bundles, but also all the security and data privacy issues that are along those use cases. The other one is follow up on the infrastructure architecture that already exists, and then we know that those are going to expand. So DSI in Europe is a good case, and we know and follow and participate as IHE through IHE-Europe in those developments, and will create new tools to support the new use cases there. The other part, which is I think a good thing to learn from the Swiss case, is that there is a need by the end users to create end-to-end testing and workflow testing. And this is a nice enhancement that we have added through the Swiss project, and I hope that we are able to reuse it in other contexts. Learning from our experiences, another thing that we understood in our recent history is that we need to integrate testing with specifications and try to be as present as possible, or understand correctly the specifications that are created, because good specification means that we can have good testing tools. And we saw that in many projects that sometimes specifications are created in a way that they are it's very hard to port them into testing. So we had some good discussions with Didi on that, with the CDA specification, for example. Another thing that I think is a good trend and we can see, and I think we're going to invest more, is how we can align the procurement cycle with testing tools and specifications. This is something that we have tested and supported the national program in Gabon, for example, trying to reduce the risk in the deployment projects. So because as we are moving from simple information systems into hospital, now we are, most countries want to deploy huge, large integration projects. This means higher risk and cost. Let's not forget also our initial history, like the Veneto region, where we supported their regional program that was implemented into steps. Most of it's based on IHE profiles, but not only. And that's a good way of, again, reusing Gazelle in such a context, supporting also regional deployments. Finally, I think another point where we can be supportive is the concept of quality in the clinical documents and messages that have to be exchanged. And this is a process that we have started getting maturity and good knowledge in collaboration with the Sequoia project in the US, for example. But we have started discussions also with other communities, for example, with the medical device community, how we can provide also testing services in the domain of, for example, the medical device regulation in Europe. So we know that it's not only about interoperability, but a great deal of the quality of the medical, the exchange of medical data is going to be based also on interoperability. So thank you very much, and back to you, Claudio.
Thank you, Alessandro. If there are some questions for the floor, you can use your mic if you want, without using chat. No question. I have a comment to the slide of Alexander. Very, very interesting, Alexander. And to have an idea of the market of the continuum testing, if we put together the vendor register to the whole Connectathons in the world, we see that this number is comparable with the number of the vendor that registered to the Projectathons. So I believe that the market of Projectathon are very incredible opportunity for the completely ecosystem of the system, because as you have just said, one innovation developed for Swiss could be useful for the whole community of the testing continuum. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, if there is no question, I say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice special event that start in the late afternoon for the 20 years history of Connectathons. Thank you very much to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Claudio.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.